From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
Welcome to Space Brains, the show where we joy watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya. Tonight we're talking about I.O. It's a 2019 film. It's basically about a female scientist named Sam that's left on planet Earth. She's trying to figure out a way to make Earth work after it's become toxic. When everyone else has been shipped off to a moon orbiting Jupiter, and it's sort of her decision whether she should stay on Earth or leave.
Turn back now. This is your spoiler warning. If you haven't seen this movie, go back and watch it and then join us as we discuss it.
Turn away, turn away, turn away. So what was your number one takeaway from I.O.?
Number one takeaway is that bee eugenics, okay. Human eugenics, it's been frowned on traditionally.
Fair enough. Yeah. We shouldn't sort of annihilate a whole generation of the human species, you don't think?
Yeah, well, it gets difficult. You see, it's very easy to pick a bee that performs better and breed it. But when you start going around hand selecting humans who perform better and breeding them, that's, I guess, a bit mean.
It is mean. It's mean. It's not allowed. And we've done it with dogs, haven't we, really?
I wouldn't get to breed.
Yeah. We humans should be allowed to breed, apparently.
But not with dogs.
Not with dogs, because that's the whole coronavirus.
Or bees.
Or bees.
Because that's a pain in the ass.
You wouldn't want to admit to that you've bred with a bee, would you? Well, that would sort of say something about your anatomy.
It would give you a...
The queen bee is the size of an inch. And I mated with her.
So, anyway, that's bee eugenics.
That's bee eugenics.
Which is okay.
Yes, it is okay.
How about you? Is this a movie of hope, warning, or is it an experiment? I'm
going experiment. For a long time, we have had a lot of warnings, Surrey. Whereas I think this is an experiment because the film, and we've had the warning, so please stop, go watch it, come back. So I'm going to ruin it all right now, is that, the start of this plot is that, Earth has had this, we've ruined Earth, we've polluted it, we've stuffed it up completely beyond repair, which is maybe where we're heading, as we know right now, with the whole coal debate, etc. And in this film, we've gone into the future, maybe 30 years or something after that, and humans have left. And the air is just not breathable. You literally have to have an oxygen mask to survive here. It's that toxic. Yeah. And every type of animal has died.
All the animals.
Yeah, there's a really good line here about the birds.
Yeah.
And she sort of says, you would think that some of the birds could have survived because they could have flown high enough to maybe better levels of oxygen. And he's like, well, they've got to land somewhere. Yeah, and I liked that because it made you think, if as humans we've stuffed the planet Earth up, which we seem to be heading that way, that everything dies, doesn't it? All the animals die, etc. It's not just humans, we all die. So why I think it's an experiment is because that's the setup of the film, is that the air is toxic, and the experiment is, well, if we kind of move further enough into the future, can we overcome that through human genetics or, genetics in general? So I think it's an experiment. And this film is suggesting no to begin with, and then yes.
Yeah, so which could put it as a bit of a hope there.
Yeah, then maybe there is hope.
But the problem is, though, that the trouble has been caused by humans.
Humans, yeah.
So hope usually is humans overcoming
like an asteroid or
an
aliens.
external
Yeah.
problem. Otherwise, it's a warning then when humans have screwed us up.
It is a warning because, you screw the planet, the air is going to become so toxic you can't even live here.
I'm going to go experiment too, though, because...
But the film focuses more on the experiment, I think.
For the reasons that, one, it's humans who screwed up the planet, so it can't really sort of be a hope, because it's like, I hope we don't screw up too badly, but it is. And warning, well, huge numbers of the Earth's population got off to Io, and they're going to move on to
another planet,
Proxima Centauri.
Yeah, beautiful.
Which they reckon has got a twin of Earth.
Yeah, lovely.
So
I don't know where this place is, but I like it.
That's not really a warning. That's kind of like, oh, okay.
Let's just do it.
That's nice.
Let's do it tomorrow. I mean, honestly.
So, yeah, a bit more of an experiment. As in, first of all, you're the last people on Earth. What's going through your mind there? Do you try and love your mother, or do you jump ship?
Yep.
And this does both.
Yeah, it does. It totally does. And I agree with that rationale. I would love to know scientists out there, and they could hit us up on our socials. If you watch this film, do you think it is possible? Because she is only the first generation. Like, her father was before the toxicity.
Yeah.
She's come along, and okay, she does get negatively affected by the toxic air. But then at the end of the film, the climax is her kind of taking the mask off, and she apparently survives. And then also going further into the future, she's had a child that is also okay. I mean, my limited knowledge of evolution would suggest that would not be possible.
Wow,
Such a quick breakdown, you know what I mean? Because humans don't evolve that quickly, do we?
No, we're not like bacteria or
viruses. If you take bacteria, insects, that their lifespan's so short that of course it can. So bees, I could get that. Like, within a few generations, maybe they've accepted the air quality, but humans would take a lot longer than that.
Yeah,
I would think.
It was hinted in this movie, however, that there was more history behind this scientist, his father. What's his name?
So maybe he did something else.
Harold.
I wrote it down. Werner, I think.
It.
I think it's Werner, isn't it?
Werner, yes.
Yeah.
So there's sort of a bit of a hint there that old Werner and
old man
Werner, his wife June. Oh my goodness, man. It's like I watched this movie just earlier today. Yes, June. It's sort of a hint there that there had been... They were actually running an experiment at a larger sense. That
it was Waldron.
Waldron
is his name.
Old man Waldron.
Waldron, American.
So it was kind of hinted that there was ongoing experiments prior to Sam's arrival.
Yeah.
The Micah, when he's there, he says, your dad, what did he do to your mum? Or what's he done? It was sort of somehow it was implied that
he'd done
scientific experimentation done on the mum and she died.
And, Sam was kind of doing that test into her own belly, and she's kind of like, it builds up our immunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was implied that, maybe they did do things to themselves to make it a bit more, speed up that process, I guess. But I still have doubts about that idea of it getting so quickly evolved.
Yeah.
Because you're only, she was young, 18.
It didn't really say what the pollutant was. But flames turned purple, which I found is mostly potassium salts.
Yeah, and she reacted very toxic. She had oxygen on the whole time. And when that scene early in the film, she runs out of oxygen, and she runs out of air to breathe.
She's gasping, yes, but that's only because she's got that mask on. It's a bit. It would be good. So if
but if there's scientists out there that can tell us,
if the scientists want to go chime in on that, or even the director and writer of this film would like to get in touch.
Definitely.
So far, we've had very few of those things.
We have. I know. I'd love to get a bit more contact.
We have spoken to a couple of directors, so that's pretty cool.
The West Australian directors are standing, strong on the shoulders of giants.
Bring out the West Aussies. Yeah, so it's quite a good question to ponder.
Yes, but let us know what you think, whether it's a hope, warning, or experiment. So hit us up and send us a message about that. What have you been up to, Surrey? Are you up to your 18th sci-fi book yet? Published, printed out there?
No.
New York bestseller?
I'm just finishing off my how to write a novel.
Oh, okay. You've gone down that element. Yeah.
I'm down to using the what software to use and how to format your document before you start writing, so that you don't spend 6 years trying to format it later on and have it go all shonky.
Very good information.
Particularly because, let's face it, if you're a self-published author starting out and you're looking for ways of writing a novel, you probably don't want to fork out like a couple $100 to get someone to format it for you. And you don't need to. So that's what I'm up to there. So there's going to be some screenshots and diagrams, and bits and pieces that I've got to do. But otherwise, I've been wondering how I can get a hold of this new Star Trek Picard. Because Jean-Luc Picard was one of my favourite captains from Next Generation. It's on Amazon Prime, though. And
so hit us up if you know how to get that.
Well, okay. Being a computer, I know how to get a hold of it. I'm just tossing up whether I should pay Amazon Prime or
reasons.
I should wait for it to come out on DVD or what.
Yeah.
So if someone's got a little review of that, they want to quickly tell me whether it's
worth
my time
worth
or not.
spending the money.
Yeah, I'd like to find out. So I quite like that new one, the Star Trek Discovery, which has got that was on Netflix.
Yeah.
That's quite good. So
we get there's such a war. We're in Australia, and there's such a war coming soon of the streaming services. Like we've had Disney come, and there's big talk of HBO in America are actually they've already licensed it is a streaming service.
Yeah.
And in Australia, what that will mean is like Foxtel will lose one of their biggest providers, but in the UK, HBO has signed an extension saying, Sky, I think it's called in the UK, will still continue HBO stuff. So in Australia, we've got Netflix, we've got Stan, they're big players. Disney's just come in. If we start to get those other ones like HBO and I think Amazon and a couple of those others start to come in heavily, all of a sudden there's this massive content war going on, isn't it?
And we're going to be going back to piracy here in Australia, I'm afraid.
I think so, because all of a sudden then you're not just paying the $12 to Netflix, you're paying $12 to each of them, and it suddenly adds up to $50.
Yeah, for something paying $50 or $60 a month, and let's face it, that's a case of beer.
It is, and that's a big expense in Australia.
That's one case less each month I'd have.
Well, that's right. You alcoholic.
But having said that, it's terrible to think that these content wars are usually based around one or two flagship shows.
They are, aren't they?
Which is a real shame, because I'm looking at there's this Star Trek Picard. There's a couple other there's another one on Amazon. I can't remember what it is. I thought it was interesting, but I don't watch that much TV.
Yeah.
So I don't want to pay another $10 a month to get access to one show. And HBO found with Game of Thrones, one really big show that everyone wants to watch. If you don't provide it in all the formats and all the manners that people are able to or want to watch it, then you also end up with the most pirated show in history. Yeah. And Australia was the kingdom of piracy of Game of Thrones. Because
it's only available on Foxtel here, so it's quite expensive to get.
Yeah, you couldn't just get the HBO package. You had to get some, $60 or $70 a month.
You have to sign up with Foxtel.
Business,
Yeah.
And then they wouldn't sell the DVDs here for years, honestly. So that's the problem I sort of see, is you end up with all of this scattering of good content across all these things. At some point you're going, I'm not paying $12 a month to watch one show.
Well, it's the same with Disney, because Disney was on Foxtel and then it swapped over to Stan, and so it's like, sorry, not Foxtel. It was on Foxtel, but it was on Netflix.
They had some stuff on
Netflix. So,
they
had some of the movies on Netflix and stuff like that, when it was just kind of, I think, Disney kind of going, who pays for streaming stuff? Yeah. And then they've suddenly realised, oh, crap, everyone does. And so they've kind of then gone, well, we should have our own streaming service,
But the nice thing about all these streaming services? Most of their flagship shows that they're advertising are science fiction related.
They are, and the other thing is it's high quality stuff, isn't it? Like they're really investing in it. I mean,
since there's been a couple of
Netflix, I know that they've gone now into the movies, and that Bright movie, which was a sci-fi movie that was $60 million movie, like big money.
Will Smith in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the Chris's.
They did, and young Australian actress played the fairy or whatever it was. But yeah, like there's investment in sci-fi and content. That's good stuff. Yeah. All right, we should jump into the plot of I.O., I believe. Sorry.
So I.O. starts off with
voiceover.
A little voiceover telling us that we'd screwed the world.
Yeah.
And in one, people started dying, and then one evening, everyone jumped in rocket ships and flew away.
Yeah, 100 ships left Earth to go to this
That's
orbit.
not a lot.
No, it's not a lot, but if we're orbiting this... I mean, look, just on a little side note, like, why? Why go all the way to... anyway, I got a bit confused by it.
Yeah.
Like, why does it... I know they said there's a power station, blah, 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 but it's like, come on.
Well, they originally launched the power station to save Earth. I assume that the bad air was caused by some power supply system. And so they went, oh, well, let's off-planet this to stop our atmosphere. But they did it a bit too late.
Yeah.
And as a result, it was harvesting power in some fashion.
Yes.
And then they decided to turn it into a living station. So off they went.
And this mission was known as Exodus. And they were heading into this power station, which was called Io.
Yeah, see, this is funny. We watched a couple of Chinese films, and this one clearly a Western film, like an American film, because Exodus being one of the books of the Bible. Where the Hebrew people all up and leave and wander about for a long time.
And the other thing is, in this film, like, it's not in the Chinese films, everyone works together.
Yes.
Again, this is kind of a bit more like, a few of us will stay to try to solve the oxygen problem if we can, but the rest of us are like, screw you, we're out of here. Whereas the Chinese version will be like, no, we stay and we fix the planet, Some of you will move on and some of you will stay, and we're happy about that.
And they're talking evil scientist voices.
That's the whole way through the movie.
Okay. Yeah, so we start off with Sam. We don't know her name at this point, but there's a young woman, and she
had some nice skinny jeans. Sorry.
Yeah.
I liked them. I like the skinny jeans.
Got to keep the skinny jeans going here. There's a fashion in the future as well. And she's walking around in an underground place where there's a lot of water dropping down, and she seems to be scavenging some parts.
Pretty hardcore industrial.
Yeah, and then she stops and sees a puddle.
Yep.
And she gets down and has a look, and there's little wrigglers in there, like maybe mosquito larvae and a black mold. So she takes a bit of a sample. She starts a voice log, which... nice enough, the computer tells us, beginning voice recording now. And then she says, begin voice log. And you go, well, okay, pretty convinced the log has started. And so
Alexia is working.
Yeah. Hey, Google, start voice log.
That would have been better, wouldn't it? It was like, hey, Google.
And she takes a sample and a pH test, and her log indicates that she thinks that they're converting ammonia into oxygen.
I thought you would have liked that. She did do it very scientific, the way I look at science, because she took two samples, and she explained why she was taking two samples
underneath and the thing.
And she said the second one is to prove the first. And I was like, oh, okay, yep, that's how science works. Sorry.
Yeah, ammonia being converted to oxygen is. Oh, what was I was reading not long ago?
That would be a key factor, wouldn't it? I only know a little bit, but I think
ammonia
that's
is nitrogen, oxygen, and.
Look, it sounded very logical to me. Sounded like real science.
And so she wants and she stops by and sees she's underneath. Well, for some reason, there's a poster for the art, Museum of Art.
Museum of Art, yeah.
And she reads a little quote, which is from Leader and the Swan.
Leader and the Swan, yeah. I can't remember the exact quote, but
yeah, Agamemnon lies dead is how it ends.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I'll go with that.
If you're a Greek mythology buff.
Yeah, or just into that particular story. Go for
it. So that she basically gets a little beep. She's got to swap her oxygen canister over. She has to run back to get the new oxygen canister. And she manages that. She's got a little ATV. And we see the skyline, the city she's in. I can't really tell what city it is.
No, but it's
indistinct there.
Yeah, it is. But it's a cool city, as in... crumbling buildings, overgrowth everywhere.
Yeah, there's this vine, like an ivy-like vine on everything.
On everything, yeah.
And she even makes a comment that the plants, the leaves are changing colour.
They are, yeah.
And so they're
and this kind of, there's a moment which is quite nice, like she sort of takes in the city kind of like a big wide shot of the city, and you do get to see that, and it's kind of pretty in a way, even though she's got the mask on, and obviously, there's a lot of fog and stuff, but there's a prettiness to it.
Yes, a certain elegance, dilapidated elegance, I think they'd call it.
And she's riding a little quad bike. That was cool to see.
Yeah, she shoots up, and we find out that not all of Earth is covered by this fog, because she breaks up through the cloud layer up onto
Mountains,
highlands,
sort of thing.
some sort of tabletop area.
And even on the road, it says clean.
Yeah, the thing that got me, and I haven't looked up to see where this was filmed, but that terrain, that scenery up there looks so much like the hills around Canberra.
Yeah, right.
Here in Australia. Like
it might have been filmed in Canberra.
Low brown scrub with bits of granite outcroppings, except for the hills going off into the distance, which could have been CGI'd in.
Yeah, well, I think the city and the fog looked like it was CGI'd in.
I'm going to take a stab and say it was actually filmed in California.
Yeah.
But it looks a lot like where I grew up in Canberra.
So when she gets back, she decontaminates the good old-fashioned way, which is like through stand through hose thing. She cleans up, and she she sends this information about the kind of the information she's gathered on her field trip about the mosquitoes or the insects to the colony. So she types an email, and so she sends that off to the colony, and it's sort of like exciting news that she's found insects that maybe are breeding in this environment, that there's some sort of evolution happening. And then she goes about experimenting, and she tests a bee, and she kind of apologizes to the bee, which is kind of, save the cat, isn't it? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to kill a bee. And she puts it in, she tests it, and of course it dies, and she's puts big fail into her notebook. She's very scientific about everything she's doing the whole time. So it's telling us a lot about Sam, the character, that she's a scientist, and that she's disappointed that the bee has died. And that she receives then a message back from Io, and they're telling her this message, and the guy's name is Elon, like Elon Musk.
Yeah, but this guy's name was Elon Sum.
I don't think we know his last name. He's an engineer, so maybe.
Yeah.
But it might just be a little homage to Elon. But he's telling her that they're exploring further in space than they've ever had, and that the council have kind of got a plan to kind of go somewhere else, and that they basically give up on Earth because Earth will actually, the toxicity will take over everywhere.
Yeah.
That's what he's telling her.
It's the end of that story.
Yeah. So, but they've obviously got some sort of relationship going on.
Yeah, and she doesn't jump up and down with that idea.
No. So she tests herself. This is where we sort of see her first testing her belly, and she's got all these scars. She kind of burns herself a little bit. And she collects fresh fruit from her little garden and vegetables and that sort of stuff. She plays classical music and kind of looks through the telescope.
That gave me a real 2001 feel.
It did, didn't it?
It wasn't sort of like a waltz, and then you see the space station there in the quiet depths of space.
Yep.
So that gave me that sort of
and
feeling.
we get to see what she sees, and we see Jupiter, we see the moon, and then we sort of see this little shiny metal thing, just really tiny, like an ant, but you can tell that that's the Io station. Yeah.
It must be pretty big, though.
It must be massive, yeah. And there is a comment about that a bit later, isn't there, in the film, that, well, it is actually quite big.
Yeah, it's so bright, it outshines the moon. That's why it looks like it's orbiting Jupiter and not the moon.
Yeah. Anyway, then the next day she wakes up and there's a message that the station the IO station has sent her, that in fact the council have overnight decided to reconfigure everything. They're sending all energy to a mission to this new planet. You mentioned it before.
Yeah, Proxima Centauri.
They believe it's better than Earth. It's going to be very suitable. It's going to take 10 years.
Which is impressive because it's about 4.2 or 4.4 or something like that light.
Yeah, so how fast are they traveling?
So they're going half the speed of light, really.
I guess, and they've talked about that they've mined this moon of Jupiter, whatever that means.
They've sucked enough energy out of it.
Yeah, something like that. They've gotten some special moon juice from Jupiter.
Moon juice, yeah.
And they've been sucking that moon juice a bit too long. They think they're going to get there in 10 years.
Go to shop.gravityundone.net to buy your moon juice.
Your moon juice, yeah. Okay. Can we sell that? Can we legally sell that
I can
in
sell
a jar?
I can sell a T-shirt with a written moon juice.
Moon juice, yeah, that's right. So buy your moon juice right now. And they're going to go there, and that there's the Exodus mission will mean that. And this was a nice moment for me because it was like, she's got a deadline. It was like literally like, if you don't go to the space station, Exodus, it's the last shuttles. They're going to evacuate people from Earth. You know. So it was kind of a nice like deadline, I thought. And then and it was a bit, I had to laugh at this, sorry, I don't know if you know, because after that, she rushes, and you're thinking, like, where's she rushed into? And she rushes to the library.
Yep, to the library.
Like, you've just been told that you've got like three or 4 days left on Earth, and you're going to rush to the library. It made more sense once she was there because she had to get a computer screen. But I had to chuckle at that because she's like, she rushes there. And when she's there, she sees some big flashes of light, and it's a massive thunderstorm.
She picks up her book, her art
She
book.
does, yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping over a couple of the details.
Yeah.
But the Exodus book and the mythology book, she picks them up. And there's flashes of light suddenly in the sky, and she looks out, she races back, and there's a massive thunderstorm rolling in. And she kind of gets back to her home base, and her lab gets destroyed. It gets ripped apart. The air's not good quality. She's got to kind of like gaffer tape it all up.
She's got a flame going there. It's burning purple.
So yeah.
What they used to indicate. As a nice touch, I think, giving us good little
That was a
graphic
good visual graphic, yeah.
That, like the flame has turned purple, and they do it a couple of times in this movie.
Yeah, they do. They
whip out
keep
a cigarette
lighting.
lighter and light it, and they see it goes purple or
it
yellow
is purple,
as happens shortly after this.
Yeah.
Where she's kind of wandering about, and she checks her windmills all messed up, and the
Solar
beehives
panels
are all knocked over.
Yeah, she's not happy about the beehives, is she?
And her plants are looking a little bit bedraggled.
And her lab is
it's just all over the shop. And she's wandering out at that point onto the hills, I think, and she's sort of looking a bit like, what on earth is she going to do? Oh, she even writes a little letter
to her
friend and says, storm came through and trashed a whole heap of shit.
She doesn't have enough oxygen.
Yeah, I can't carry enough oxygen on the ATVs to get there. And that's where she leaves it, and she wanders out. And you sort of think, okay, this is, what on earth is she going to do?
So at this point in the story, she has she's got 3 or 4 days to leave Earth, but she doesn't have enough oxygen to get to the launch site.
Yeah, and she's looking like she's a bit lost. And then magically, like Mary Poppins falling from the sky, a helium balloon.
He's an Avenger.
Just comes rolling on in, instead of groaning and creaking and
I was actually thinking, like, is it a ghost thing? You know what I mean? Like, is no one on it?
Yeah.
I just thought, is this thing going to like crash, and that's how she's going to get to the launch site? Do you know what I mean? Like because it's the end of the world sort of story. So it's like, is there like just like a hot helium balloon floating around?
A room temperature helium balloon.
No, whatever it is. Yeah. I'd imagine it'd be hot. Sorry.
Probably. As hot as helium?
Hot as helium.
That's a
Isn't
phrase
that hot?
people use, hot as helium.
Hot as helium.
Oh, he's looking hot as helium. He was
an Avenger.
It lands down. The door opens and
out pops an Avenger.
An Avenger, Micah, with his mask, and he sort of staggers a bit and
takes it easy.
You see he's sort of huffing a bit on his mask. And
he's not an Avenger, so he has to
lights his cigarette lighter and goes and pulls his mask off.
Yeah.
And yes, she's sort of been saved.
And she gives him, she's a bit testy with him, isn't she? She's a bit like standoffish.
Yeah, and he's a bit gruff too.
He's a bit rough too, yeah. And I guess like the point, because as the film progressed from here, you do sort of, it is revealed more and more how long maybe she's been on her own. So it made a bit more sense, but she was very standoffish.
We also find out later on that this guy's plan had been to
come in and
kill her dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or confront him.
I don't
think he was actually going to kill him, but he was he was going to be bit growly at him.
And that's what he stipulates. Like, he's here to see Dr. Walden. And she kind of says, oh, he's away for a couple of days. He's off on one of his crazy adventures and he'll be back. But you get the feeling that neither of them are telling each other the truth. And that's what we mean by that standoffish kind of thing.
But she takes him in.
She takes him in once she realizes that he's a bit more genuine. And he says he wants to take him to the launch pad. And she offers fresh vegetables and he eats them like a beast.
With honey on them.
With honey. Why wouldn't you? If it's the end of the world, I would.
It's a bit weird, but okay, he seemed to enjoy it.
But she says it would make him taste better. And I thought, fuck yeah, it would make him taste better. Sugar on vegetables. It's like salt. I mean, like, honestly, like, everything tastes a bit better with salt on it, doesn't it? I mean, honestly, come on.
I've not really tried.
Yeah, come on.
My lettuce with honey.
We're all trying to be healthy because, but if it was the end of the world, you'd screw that. You'd put honey on everything.
I think the atmosphere would be making you unhealthy enough that you may as well.
And if you honestly, like, he's like, you've got fresh vegetables, like maybe this guy's been eating dried, packaged, long-lasting food for 8 years. It's like you've got a fresh capsicum,
Yeah, it would taste like magic, wouldn't it?
It would taste like magic, especially if you added honey to it. Yeah. So I don't think you would need to add the honey, but anyway, we need to add the honey now.
Yeah.
And he keeps kind of questioning her over the doctor's whereabouts, and eventually she reveals the truth.
Well, it takes you a while because, first of all, he's reading the Exodus book.
That's right.
Says it's for June, so he goes, that
She starts flirting a bit with him, doesn't she?
And then she puts on the tape of Dr. Waldron.
Yeah, the recording broadcast.
Out, And he says, oh, that's just a recording. She says, yes, I do that while he's away. And he says, so he's been away for at least 2 days now. And she's like, yes. He'll probably be back tomorrow.
Sure. Yeah, 2 days. Well, like 2 years, but okay.
Yeah, and then he's and then he confronts her about his mum, June.
That's right.
And says, what did he do to her? And there's nothing. And they make peace, and as he's going to sleep, I'm pretty sure it's around this time.
Yeah.
She says, Dad, that's what Dad would have said, or something.
Yeah.
And so that's when he realizes, okay, he's actually dead.
Yeah, there's that video, isn't there? Remember, there's a video that she's playing, and then at the end of the video, it crosses to the last recording of her father on a TV show, kind of saying, "Some of us will stay," and he goes, "Yeah," like he's admitting that he stayed. He was one of those people that stayed. Yeah,
and then he tells us the sad story about his wife dying.
Yeah, he does that a bit later.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he does.
Oh, no, I'm jumping forward.
Yeah, because then, so he's admitted that he's asking her about the mother, and that, like Dr. Walden killing the mother, and she doesn't agree with that. And he bursts into Dr. Walden's office.
Yeah.
And it's all dusty and cobwebby, and he's like, what the bloody hell has been going on here? And there's a nice scene after that. I really liked this, that like cuts from him doing that and being quite confused in his office to then she's in the lab, and it's kind of like earlier in the film. So it's that time thing that we were talking about separately, and she's talking to him and he doesn't look well, the father. Yeah. And he's kind of like, why are you protecting yourself? Like, there's nothing that I can do to save, like, give up on everything, leave.
Yeah, this is a lost cause.
Lost cause. I would have solved it, which I thought was pretty arrogant.
Yes, yeah. Like, if it could have been solved, I would have
already solved it. I'm thinking, well, maybe she knows or something that you don't know. But anyway, and then he's like, and that right at the end he goes, yeah, because I'm dead. So it's like she's talking to a ghost. Like he's not.
Why
really
don't you have your oxygen? Because I'm dead.
So I liked that scene, actually. That was a kind of a bit of a standout moment because it just cuts from that as well. And when it comes back, that's when she tells him that her father actually did die.
Yeah.
And she buried him next to her mother and etc. And he says, well, Micah says, oh, well, I'm going to take you to Exodus. I'm going to get you there.
Yeah, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, which is kind of a good, like, it was right on the midpoint of the movie, so it was a good sort of like tonal switch.
Almost I actually checked that.
Yeah, I think it was halfway.
The storm came through pretty much at 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then he turned up in his little gondola.
Fun and games kind of bit, yeah.
A couple of minutes after that, signalling the beginning of Act 2.
Yep.
Yeah, so in this bit here where the story goes, okay, they've reached sort of the peak of their relationship together here.
Yeah, being standoffish.
And then it swaps to being, okay, now we've got this goal, we've got to go.
Yeah, we're a team now.
Yeah.
And he, so there's sort of, she's a bit more depressed now. So that's like a good midpoint. She's changed, more depressed.
Yeah.
He's a little bit more like, well, this is our plan of action. We're going to get to X. As soon as the wind kicks up the right direction, we're off.
Yeah, I think the thing is that he now has someone he can save. He couldn't save his wife, but now he can save.
And his plan wasn't to come here to save someone, it was to probably come here and kill someone. But he's discovered, well, the person that came here to kill is dead. And in fact, there's a young girl here that needs saving, that's worth saving,
Yeah.
And he finds the queen bee, actually, and she was stuck in
while
the
they're
thing.
packing to leave.
Yeah, while they're packing to leave. And he says a good line, which is like, oh, what does this mean? And she goes, it means nothing.
Yeah, I was a bit curious about that. I thought that was going to be a...
Yeah, I did too.
Oh, this means it could work. But no, it's like...
She'd given up by now.
Yeah, she's like, it means nothing.
It was a good sort of... To me, that was a good... I think it actually probably did mean something, but in the context of the film, but at the same time, it was a good kind of moment of she'd given up.
Yeah, she's like, no.
Nah, I've given up.
So they've got to find some helium. They didn't have enough helium for the balloon because the launch site had changed. There was...
That's a little bit later.
I'm jumping ahead of the sleeping games, yeah?
You are.
Okay.
So she gets a message from...
Elon Musk.
Good old Muskie sends her another email, and he's saying that
Have you seen my Tesla? It seems to have come off out of orbit.
He's been selected, which is no surprise if he's old Muskie.
Yeah.
He's been selected to go to the new planet.
Muskie.
Right, so old Muskie's been selected, and he can't, and it's also, isn't that funny? Isn't that a little bit of a homage to the 1990s chat rooms? Like, hey, baby, you're hot. Yeah, baby, you're hot. Let's meet up. Yeah, sure, let's meet up. Hey, I can actually meet you at the shopping center. I can't. I'm going on a time-traveling expedition. I don't want her to meet me.
Do you think maybe he was catfishing her?
Yeah, I think he was catfishing her. He's, in fact, married on the space station, and... He's actually like an 80-year-old guy,
He's not even a guy. He's actually a lesbian who was coming out of a bad relationship, and so she thought she would pretend to be a guy looking for a heterosexual relationship, but then found a way out by saying that she was going to...
Very true, sorry. Yeah.
Io.
But it might not even be that deep. They just thought she'd never leave Earth and catch them.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, God, you're coming here? No. No, we're all leaving. We're all leaving to a new magical planet. Only 10 years away.
Yeah, we'll meet
By the
again,
time you get here,
now.
we will be gone. And you will never catch us. Yeah, it seemed a bit suspicious that way. But he breaks her heart through that message. She has a big tear over it. And she really, there's a moment there I felt like that she has a tear over it, she's upset, she's heartbroken, and then she looks at Micah like, you're going to be my rebound guy.
Yeah, it's...
there was a moment there, it's just I'm going to screw your bones.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Is that a real thing? Write in and tell us if that's a real thing.
If you're female, tell us.
Well, you get your heart broken, then immediately you go have a shower in front of someone, and then
that was a bit weird, that scene. I felt that scene a little bit odd
because I'd be scratching my head over that one. I'm like, what? In fact, I'd be sort of saying, given that we're going to have to share a balloon for a few days to a site, and God knows how many months on board a rocket ship I'm not sure we should accelerate this relationship until we know each other a bit better.
Yeah, I think we do.
This isn't like a night out at a nightclub where you can have one night stand and then if
never
you like
see
them,
each other
you
again.
can catch up in a few more days or never see each other again. It's sort of like you're going to be together now enforced for a while.
Yeah, but anyway, so she is heartbroken. She sets off. She showers in front of him, which was really awkward. Because, look, I've got to say, it also felt like she was young. I don't know.
She had to have been.
Like, I think she was over 18, but I mean, at the same time, like the casting, it felt she was really young.
The problem
Like,
I
struggled with that. Like,
he was around before it was too toxic.
So, and then she was born
after it was toxic.
So we've got this situation where...
And she must be, let's call her 18.
Yeah.
Let's say, and he was going to be a teacher, so he would have been, let's say he wasn't actually a teacher, that he would have been in school or something. He'd be 30.
Well, let's say he's 20 when it happens. She's 18 now. It makes him like 40, right?
Well, yeah, I think he could be anywhere between 30 and 40, depending on whether he could have been a 12-year-old.
Well, I was leaning more towards 40, but you work off the numbers. And so she's 18, he's 40.
Yeah, it's like, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm in my 40s. If some 18-year-old girl was sort of flirting with me, I'd be like, no, that's first of all, like, that's too weird.
It started to, hey, and I'm into it all. I'm open-minded. Sorry, I am open-minded, but it just felt
we have
a
to remember
little
that
bit
it's quite possible.
Awkward. There was awkwardness here.
Yeah, it was a desperate end of world situation, maybe.
Yeah, and that happens.
And he did say, no, I can't, but he did anyway.
Yeah. Which is pretty much what every guy would probably do, I think.
Well, she said, we have to.
We have to. Okay. You've twisted my arm.
I guess you're right. We do have to.
And it was like...
It's in the script, for God's sake. Oh, okay.
I will say, the way they did, or the way it was shown, she does flirt a bit with him. She then showers in front of him, and the whole time he does nothing. So I guess if you put it in that kind of concept, like he didn't instigate anything. And then she does start kissing him, and he actually doesn't even kiss her back. Because I was watching that closely. I was like, what's, like, this is a bit weird what's going on. And I think emotionally, when you take it like that as two characters, he really, she literally started making out with his mouth, and he was not giving her anything. And it's like, so she was really forcing herself on it. And then she does, he goes, I can't do this. I can't do this. And she goes, but we have to. And then they make out together, so there was a bit of hesitation there from him. So it wasn't like he was just going in guns a-blazing.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means.
That'd have been super creepy. He turns up in his balloon. Where's your dad? He's not here.
Okay. All right.
Like, whoa,
I was going to kill him, but now I can make love to you.
Hold on there, cowboy.
But now you and I can go up in my balloon.
Yeah, so anyway.
So she rapes him. Let's say that.
Just to be delicate.
Just to be delicate. She really goes for it. And, to get back at old Muskie, really.
Yeah, probably Elon's up there just wishing that he had one more email from her or something, and she doesn't.
She doesn't. And she then after that sends good old Muskie a good email saying, I'm happy for you, live your life.
Did she?
Yeah.
I thought she didn't respond to him.
No, she does. She sends one off because she's had the time of her life now and realised that, the long-distance email thing wasn't doing her loins any good.
I don't know that whole long-distance thing is going to work.
No. Let us know if it does work if you're out there, because I don't think it would work. It wouldn't work for me. So that's when they learn that the launch pad, I think Micah learns that the launch pad has been shifted. And you gave us this spoiler a moment ago that he knows, we don't have freaking enough of this hot helium.
Hot as helium, man.
If we had cold helium, we'd be all right, but we don't have enough hot helium. And we've got to take off, and we've got to get more helium. It's the end of the world, oh, God, we're stuck here, maybe.
Luckily, Sam knows where there's helium.
She knows where there's helium.
It's further into the zone than she's ever been and longer.
Which makes sense. I mean, honestly, if it's the end of the world, there would be helium.
Yeah, well, as it turns out, they basically...
It's like a amusement park.
Yeah, they drag this stuff down to an amusement park. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of helium for the balloons, I guess. But she wants to go to the museum.
Yeah. And anyway, in this, he tells her that really, he tells her now, why he came, that he feels her father forced people to stay. Mm. And he was included in that, and his wife. And her father's the reason lots of people actually died.
Yeah.
And it's cold truth here about her father. And he tells us the story that his wife got sick And he then sort of squirreled away some food to keep himself going and kind of deliberately not gave it to his wife. Whoops. But he did that because he knew she was dying anyway, and then he could survive a little bit more, and then she died. And so, but then the guilt of that made him want to come after Dr. Walden and kind of go, you have caused all of us to die. And that then Sam, him kind of getting to meet her and learn about her, has realised, no, hang on, I can save you and I can kind of make it okay that I let my wife die. Whoops.
So he gives her an hour to go to the museum.
Yeah. Go have your fun.
And you get the feeling at this stage he's not entirely sure she's coming back.
Yeah.
Because he sets his oxygen alarm a little bit early.
Yep.
And it starts beeping. He changes his oxygen, then goes to the museum, knowing that hers will run out shortly. And she's there looking at the leader and the swan painting, having walked through looking at the various nude statues and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yes, and then she asks him, what's this story mean? And he explains about Leda being the mother of Helen of Troy, and the swan is Zeus, who took her away and as the Greek gods did, knocked her up. And how Paris stole Helen, and there was a big fight, and the towers fell down, and King Agamemnon lay dead, and Leda was kind of left alone.
And I think I wrote down that she gave back to the Greek children, or gave birth. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, swans have that effect on me as well.
Yeah, they do. Got to watch out, swans around you.
Look at me in the right way, and I give birth to Greek children.
Woo,
somehow.
There they come, little Surreys.
If there's any scientists out there who want to explain to us how a swan could allow someone to give birth to Greek children, I don't know. I think that's even less likely than a human evolving in one generation.
It's a very anomaly, isn't it?
We'll go with it. He's a god. Zeus is a god. He can do these things.
And anyway, she decides that she's going to stay, even if it means dying.
She because at the time it was a bit of a surprise to me. She ripped the old mask off.
Yep.
And I thought, she's committing suicide.
And he grabs her, and she's like, well, this is what I want to do. I'm going to risk.
But she doesn't fall on the ground gasping or anything. And in fact, we see sort of flashbacks to the Lucy the pig.
Yep.
Who was hanging around. Got the strange feeling. Because that was another one of those funny things is like, Lucy, gave us all hope.
Yeah.
And he said, what happened to Lucy? And there's just kind of like a bit of a weird silence. Well,
she died. Later in life.
Yeah.
But why didn't they do more Lucy?
See, maybe they did with her. That's what I mean. There's a couple of hints in here because she talks about eugenics with the bees to try and make them survive. And she talks about Lucy the pig gave them hope. And then there's sort of this hint about something with her mother.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a few hints in there that, maybe she was, and she'd been little micro dots of toxins on her skin.
Yeah.
We end up then with Micah in his balloon floating away, getting his email or a letter. Was it written or was it an email? I can't remember. Because it was just a voice over her.
Was it? Yeah.
So I'm going to assume that he was on the ship and
I think so.
Getting his email because that's how she seemed to communicate.
Yeah.
And she's down on the beach because she'd had this dream on the beach. She didn't have a mask on. And she's saying how tell the people the world is beautiful and it will be here for them when they return. And her son
runs along,
It's a little bit sad because he's got a bit of a grim future.
Yeah, he does.
Unless the people from Io actually do turn around and come back.
Yeah.
Which, I know, I'm going to guess they must because otherwise she's just condemned this poor boy to a very lonely existence when she inevitably dies of old age and he just spends his entire life by himself in a animal-less toxic cloud.
I know it's a little bit bittersweet that the boys are in the way.
It's not as romantic an ending as perhaps you'd like, but
no.
I'm going to go ahead and believe that they've come back from Io.
Maybe they'd just send like a search party,
It'd be worth them seeing someone because if she still continues to send emails up there saying, oh yeah, like I'm breathing the atmosphere, and
I've had a son,
and Micah corroborates and says, yes, she took her mask off. We were in the museum.
But that would suggest that she's evolved to be like that, whereas everyone on the station would not be.
But it would be possible, though, to make more people like that.
Yes.
So the people on the station, their children, would have the opportunity of living back on Earth.
Yeah.
And there's also the thing about the whole once you get.
But they wouldn't have her evolutionary. They'd have to breed that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like
yeah,
the people, the generation that's on the Io space station, they wouldn't be able to be on Earth.
No.
But their children would have the opportunity because they'd be able to have children that could. And there was sort of a thing about the bees. Like they wanted to get the bees going because if they could get some bees that are immune to the toxins, then the flowering plants would start springing up again. And then there was the comment there inside of some time span, the toxins would be cleared as the plants absorb them, I guess.
That's right.
As plants are wont to do, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, that's what plants do, don't they?
Yeah. So there you go. That
is the plot. Yeah, the end. Mika she's on the beach with her son.
Yeah. With a dead ocean and some mosquitoes.
That's right. That's a good start. It's not bad.
Yeah.
It's where we're heading. So this film was directed by Jonathan Helpert and written by Jetta, not Jester, Charles Spagno and Will Basanto. All of them have written stuff previously, and Jonathan has also directed a few short films and also a feature film. Sam is played by Margaret Qualley, and Micah is played by anthonymackie, as we said, joked about being one of the Avengers. It was filmed in the United States and released in early 2019 through Netflix. So it is a Netflix, specific film. What was your first impression, Surrey?
Well, it's quite a very slow-paced, somewhat downbeat sort of movie. Like the Earth was dying, the bees kept failing. As far as we knew, these weren't the last two people on Earth, but there weren't a lot more.
Yeah.
They obviously had enough to warrant some escape shuttles.
Mm-hmm.
So it had that. I was looking for either a stronger sense of tragedy, disaster, I should say, rather than because it sort of had that tragic feeling at the end rather than a disaster, and it didn't have that hopeful ray of light. Although I had to take heart in the fact that they were flying off to this new planet.
Yeah,
that sounds awesome.
Yep,
they get to fuck that one up too. It's brand new. So having said that, I quite like the imagery used. The city was just really intriguing and interesting.
Yeah, the city was really...
The vines that covered everything, the houses were just coated in them, and there was collapse, which I guess that indicated some years had gone past, but there must have also been dangerous storms or acid rain or something corrosive to have caused these things, unless there were wars caused by the pollution. So it was a very interesting sort of a setting that they had it all in. You could almost imagine there'd be like a TV series could be set in there. It'd be quite good. Anthony and Margaret, I think they both did quite good jobs acting. I liked Margaret was a little bit inexpressive.
Yeah,
which I quite liked. In
fact.
She
was pretty cold
because it didn't come across as wooden acting. It came across as that she was isolated, socially awkward, a scientist's daughter raised up there on that observatory hill.
Yeah.
Largely only communicating with Elon by email. I don't even know when she would have met Elon in person.
And also, like, you imagine it's been done maybe in other stories in that, like, the cabin in the woods, like someone the survivalist, the person that goes off the grid, and that I have seen a couple and read a couple of stories about that. And again, as humans, if you isolate yourself, and this film talked about, didn't it? Micah talked about that Plato idea of that humans were once whole and then they got separated in two. And so they're always sort of searching for someone else.
And love is that feeling of looking for your other half. And
fulfilling that other half, that you're always missing. So I think she did quite well in that idea of someone that's probably been isolated for some period of time.
Yeah. And Anthony, he held his own there. He did quite well. He was standoffish at first, and then he started to get that bit of protective fervour. He wanted... It was important to him, to his sanity, really, that he saved her, I guess, in exchange for his wife dying. Sort of
what happened with his wife,
But as it turns out, he kind of didn't save her, but he left her there. I got to say, I mean, if she took a mask off and she's breathing okay, you wonder if he did try it too and went, is it not as dangerous? Would they both? No. Okay, I think I'm going to have to go because there's no future for me here.
Like the Total Recall thing, No, put it back on.
Yeah, so that's the way that goes. I really like I like the imagery of the cities and so forth. I like the use of the flame.
The flame was a cool visual, wasn't it?
It was a great way. They didn't have, it was a low tech, obvious thing, and she just had like a flame at all times burning.
Yeah, she did, didn't she? Yeah.
So that
makes sense.
That's just like there's an air quality measure right there. It's brilliant. That was a very clever idea.
Yeah, I think so. It was a good visual telling, as you said before. When he hopped out of the hot air balloon, he did it. Later in the film, when they're in the city, they do it. She does it as well, right at the start in that industrial warehouse.
In the video with Lucy the pig.
Yeah, they do it.
He does it to sort of show that.
So it's very symbolic of showing us what the air quality is at that time. So what about the ladder? For me, this is going to come in at kind of probably the first rung of my ladder. Again, we're not sort of doing this completely as, best to worst or anything like that. But I think on just all the features, it probably sits on that very first one. One of the main reasons for me, and I'll talk a bit about that with good and bad scenes, but I just feel that some of those visuals were not quite shown. So the flame is a really good example where they visually showed us the story, but the emailing good old Elon Musk, up in the planet, I just feel like that could have been more visual. It kind of felt like it was setting me up that there was maybe a twist in the story that never happened. So I just felt like, okay, she's emailing this young guy and they're in love and they're having a long-distance relationship. Why isn't that visually shown?
I also, like you, I was expecting there to be some sort of twist out of that or some sort of relevance, but it turns out it was just kind of, maybe it was...
It was just literally an email correspondence.
It's just an email saying, yeah, sorry, babe, I'm off to another planet.
Yeah.
And that made her have sex, which meant she had a child, I guess. Which is the way of things in movies.
Yeah. It's
sex one time
abstract.
and you instantly have a child. Of course, and the birth went without complication.
Yep. On her own.
Yeah. Don't worry about that. But, yeah, I'm going to have to put down... So, down the first sort of couple of rungs of mine ladder here, I've got Space Between Shanghai Fortress.
Yeah, I know Space Between Us for me was right at the...
I reckon right between those two.
Right between those two. Shanghai Fortress is bottoming out for you then?
No, Space Between Us is
Space Between Us is the bottom.
And the reason for that is I think Space Between Us is aimed at the younger teenage demographic.
Yeah.
In fact, I spoke with my nephew. I got to get the relationship right. I nearly called him a cousin. He's my kid's cousin, so my nephew.
Yeah.
And he is 14. He watched it at school as part of something. And he said, oh, yeah, that was okay. Yeah, sort of interesting. It was a bit romantic, I suppose, but... And I sort of went, oh, okay. That
probably says a lot.
My thought was correct that it is more aimed at that sort of age group.
And we did talk about that.
And Shanghai Fortress did have some really awesome action sequences.
Yeah, it did.
Just some top-notch special effects.
Yeah, it did.
And choreography there. So right there, IO...
Goes in between them for you. Yeah, for me, it's sitting in the bottom.
And if you're confused about where we went with the host, it went off distribution from our streaming services. And
Netflix doesn't show it anymore. Hit us up, Netflix. What the hell happened?
yes,
We demand a copy, Netflix.
I guess that was actually written by Stephanie Meyer, who did Twilight.
Ah, right.
I found out.
Okay.
So if Stephanie Meyer wants to just talk to Netflix and get it back on there just for another week,
Just for us to review
we'll
it.
be happy to watch
Yeah,
it.
yeah. We do a Hope Punk review of it, Stephanie. So hit us up. Send us a
Yeah.
copy. Well, I mean, look, all we need is a copy. We don't necessarily need Netflix.
Send
We
us
just
a
need
link
copy.
to your own private copy. I'm
That's
sure you
right.
get a copy of all your films.
So, Surrey, what are you looking into the science in IO? There's some different fields. There's the evolution I can see in there, the eugenics. I can also see stuff to do with, a power station, the moon juice idea. What
Well,
are you going to fixate on with the science?
The thing that I found that was interesting was their use of the term eugenics in reference to bees,
Right?
because that's usually not what you refer to. Normally you refer to as selective breeding. Eugenics tends to come with it the idea of humans and superior racial qualities, so when she mentioned it with the bee, it sort of, that's why I think it was a hint at her own genetic disposition being different. So if we're talking about selective breeding though versus evolution, they're actually the same thing. And she hints at that in the movie as well. She's got her little equations that she has tattooed to her, where she says you basically have inputs, chemical inputs, and selective pressures, which is what what's it called? Natural selection.
Yeah.
Survival of the fittest, and it's often misquoted. The idea isn't, it's got nothing to do with how physically fit or strong or fast or intelligent something is. It's the survival of the fittest given the environment. So, for example, in the end, we found out Sam could breathe the toxic gas.
Yeah.
So she was the fittest human to survive there. She probably couldn't run a marathon or lift weights or fight off an army, but then no one else on Earth could breathe the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So she survived, and that means she was able to carry her trait of survival to her child. And that's what this evolution is about. In the natural sense, you're dealing with large populations this is where Darwin, on his voyage on the Beagle, which is his ship, and he landed in Galapagos, and he was taking notes about the wildlife and so forth. He was already toying with this idea of evolution.
Yeah.
That things would change over time to become something else. But he was struggling with a concept of a mechanism. What would cause that, and what's an example of it that you could actually use? And so he's looking at the finches, and he's a bit of a naturalist. He likes to do his drawings, and he was drawing these finches, and they had different beak shapes, and at different parts of the island, or even on separate islands, he discovered that if you have they're all finches, but some of them had been separated to an island where they were sufficiently separated from other finches that the finches that had the hard, stubby beaks were able to crack seeds. So you can imagine if you had all the finches the same, they didn't have hard, little, short, stubby beaks. But maybe just through freak occurrence, some of them did have slightly stubbier, harder beaks. They could crack, on average, that population could crack more seeds and eat better, survive longer, and thus be more likely to have children that they bring to adulthood as well, which would select for this beak. And those children there with the better beaks at cracking their nuts and so forth down the line. So over generation of generation, this initial population, which is just all varied, would start.
They would all have the better
The people without the better beak, the
birds.
The birds, the finches without the better beak wouldn't have as many offspring, and their offspring wouldn't be as vigorous.
Yeah.
Which means those offspring would be less likely to have offspring, whereas the ones with the better adapted beak.
Hey, I like the size of your beak.
Would keep going.
You and me should hit up.
You got more and more of them. And so you end up then with this sort of differentiation of species over generations. And this is, happened with humans coming from monkeys, birds from dinosaurs, and so forth, where, obviously with humans, we grew bigger brains and had differently, what do you call it, proportioned bodies compared to the apes we came from.
Yep.
And look where we are now.
Look at us. Look how far we've come.
Now. And, well, it put us in the position to selectively breed our own animals. So dogs coming from wolves, you look at your Alaskan timber wolf.
Well, your Chihuahua.
Versus a Chihuahua. And, like, they're both from the same origin, but humans
have done all sorts of crazy
chose
shit.
the smaller, cuter wolf, and then chose from that litter of puppy the smallest, cutest one, down enough generations, and it's a lot quicker than normal evolution because the pressures are not random. They're not natural, environmental. Humans are actually causing them.
So that's what I meant earlier tonight on this episode about that. You know, that's the thing with dogs. You could see that, okay, if we as humans lived, let's say we live 50 years or 60 years, we might be able to go through 6 or 7 dogs in that same lifespan. And so if you took us as that hunter-gatherer and you like, this wolf is good, I'll breed it with this other one, it's loyal, it does things, it hunts with us, and then take the pups from those two, in my lifetime, I can like take those pups, grow them up, breed them 6 or 7 times in my lifetime. Suddenly, by the time I'm 50 or 60 years old, it's 6th generation of wolf, isn't it?
Yeah,
down the line.
Dogs are fertile from like 18 months or 12 months.
That's right, and it could be even more than that. But
you could easily have gone through 20 or 30. If you were very specifically trying to breed, you could go through that, and they certainly do that. My father-in-law breeds Kelpies for sheepdog work, and he specifically chooses. You know, he has a litter, and there'll be 6, 8 pups, and he'll work with them and let them out near sheep, see how they behave. The ones that are a little bit too aggressive, a little bit too mental, he'll
sell them.
He'll go nope, and they will.
They become little cute puppies on the.
Well, no, I don't know what happens to them. They become non-competition dogs. You know, they
just
still have the sheep
everyday people.
But then he'll get the ones which, for example, largely ignore the sheep. There's some that they kind of watch them and like any dog would, but they're not particularly interested. They become household pets. You know, he sells them as pets. But there'll be, in every litter, there'll be 1 or 2 that have the right level of friendliness. They're good around humans, like so they don't, nip at the kids and so forth. But at the same time, they're not afraid of the sheep. And they want to...
Super dog.
Yeah, like...
Super.
And he's had a couple of them. No training. These things, they're just puppies right from the get-go. They're herding the sheep over, around the paddock. And you call them over and they herd the sheep.
It's a natural behaviour.
It's behaviour. And so then actually they become the sires and the dams of the next breeding set of puppies. And he does this thing again.
Yeah.
He's not as intensive as someone who is like really working on it. So in the past sort of 14 years that I've been exposed to his world of Kelpies, he's gone through about 4 or 5 litters. So it's maybe 4. I think about 4 litters. So every 3 years or so he has another litter, which now my kids absolutely love because there's a stage where the puppies they basically drown in a puppy pool. Yeah, there's so many puppies climb and they love it. But
so very quickly you can breed that. So that was my thinking with this, with Sam, like suddenly being able to withstand the toxicity of the planet.
Yeah, that would have had to have been...
Like, if she's a first generation...
That would have had to have been direct genetic engineering to achieve that.
You would think so, yeah. Which maybe was the case, and the film just didn't discuss it.
Well, and that's why I think maybe the hint there with Lucy the pig, because Lucy the pig might have been the result of some very selective breeding with embryonic transplants and, really accelerated timelines.
Yeah, that's very true, yeah.
And then the results of that could have gone into...
What became
pigs are similar in many ways to humans.
Yeah, and it's a bit of probably a nod to Dolly the sheep, that kind of idea, isn't it? It's like, oh, maybe we can clone a sheep and then clone a human, or so. You're right that way. That the scientific thinking of it, we do it to pigs and then it works. Okay, now we can do it to a baby.
But and this same thinking then was what was behind this movement of eugenics, except eugenics was not based on science, which is the problem, because it does make a lot of sense, and it happens naturally in human society that, two athletic parents are more likely to have athletic children.
Yeah.
In part due to genetic factors, but also in part due to social factors, nature versus nurture sort of thing. And
Two space brain parents are more likely to have crazy space brain kids.
You don't want to see my kids.
That's right.
No, they're beautiful. But yeah, and then of course this happens naturally. If there are athletic kids, they'll tend to hang around with other athletes because they're on the track team, they're on the footy team, and they tend to meet other swimmers or runners or whatever. And so you sort of get these natural deviations in human society. But you go back to the turn of the century, the 19th century going 20th century, and the Nazis made it. I was going to say the Nazis made it popular, but it's well known that the Nazis were into this eugenics. But it was actually a concept that was carried through a lot of the 1800s by most nations. America, the UK, they all had these ideas of racial supremacy through genetic means. And there was no practicing of this. There's a kind of practicing where, rich parents would only want their kids to be with other rich because they're of proper blood type of thing. That sort of attitude. But it was the people that really took the ball and ran beyond the ethical goalposts were the Nazis, who I guess their basic regime was based on the concept that they were superior just by dint of their blood. The sad thing is, of course, that you actually get stronger humans through, and in general there's this thing called hybrid vigor, where you have greater difference in genetic input material results more commonly in stronger, more vigorous youth. So they do this with cows and sheep. So, for example, if you get like a purebred Angus bull, you'll tend to breed that not with other purebred Angus heifers, but with non-Angus, because the offspring then is actually grows faster and is stronger and less prone to disease.
Yeah.
So the ironic thing there with the poor old Nazis is trying to keep, genes pure down to a close race. You actually get a greater variety and stronger chance of good, healthy humans by having a more varied and mixed gene pool.
So there's more risk of like deformities and
the greater the diversity, the better the opportunity of genetic mixing to produce good results.
And this is where humans in our modern day, it works, doesn't it? And why we're probably breeding like crazy, because we do vary it so much with air travel and all sorts, all that sort of like, we're not really limited, are we? So
so I'm sorry to burst the bubble of any neo-Nazis and Nazis out there, but
I hope none of them are listening to our podcast. I mean, honestly,
it's not the sort of
I'll give up on those podcast listeners. Sorry, you can stop listening if you are a neo-Nazi.
Your theories of eugenics are not scientific.
But hit us up on Instagram and let us know. I'd love to have that conversation.
Yeah. So. I'm just wondering if there's some sort of you could do some sort of a crossover mashup app between Tinder and Ancestry.com, Make sure you've got the greatest diversity going on there.
Yeah, make sure you're not,
make sure you're not meeting your cousin or something.
Right. But we're probably almost guaranteed not to meet our cousin because of the modern world, really. That's the thing. Like the probability.
Raised in Canberra, schooled in a few thousand kilometres north, and now I'm 3,000 kilometres to the west.
So surely, if you go back even 100 years ago, it was more problem that you might hook up with your cousins.
Small towns.
Like, how did that even work? I think what it worked in Australia and probably the same in America was immigration, because we just had people from all over the places coming here, and they did breed.
As a result, these colonies, for the age, if you do the age comparison between the United States and any European nation, like the United States is totally exploded with power and wealth.
Yep.
and it's only relatively young to Europe.
Yeah.
And likewise, Australia, like 24, 25 million people. But, we're in the
Extremely wealthy country.
upper regions of productivity and so
Yeah.
forth. Even, again, when you compare to European nations
Yeah.
where they've had a lot longer go at it. And one of the reasons for that is diversity and mixing.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And it'd be interesting to compare it to, say, maybe a place like China, that maybe hasn't had as much immigration and stuff, so yeah, it is interesting, isn't it?
So there you go. We should.
There's a whole nother podcast
pick
about
up
that.
husbands and wives in China
Yeah.
or something.
No Australians do that, do they?
Well, it's usually Thailand and Philippines.
Yeah, it is more Indonesian.
Indonesia's
Yeah.
like you go there for holidays and you go, hey, these are really nice people.
Yeah, I'll marry someone.
I'll take one home.
I'll take one home as a souvenir.
Yeah.
And my dollar goes so far here that it works.
Yeah, so
I'll provide for your whole family.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And thus we become a stronger people.
We do because of diversity.
Well, let's talk about some filmmaking.
Yeah, well, we have talked a bit about it. Like you mentioned the acting before, and I kind of liked all that. I mean, the cinematography was pretty. I think rather than going through all the different aspects, I think probably it is just best to pick on. I think the standout in the visuals of this film was the special effects of especially the city. I think that vine tree overgrowth was amazing. Like there was some scenes there, they rode those quad bikes down a street. You had all the buildings covered in it, cars covered in it, broken to the side, broken buildings. Like that was some pretty damn cool special effects. I kind of kept, from the filmmaking point of view in my brain, I kept thinking, how have they actually done that? Like it really was very convincing because it didn't look like computer animation. It looked real. And yet then I was thinking, well, how have they gotten the buildings to crumble when they are really driving through them on a quad bike? Like how have they actually done that? So I really liked that then. I couldn't see the stitching. I couldn't see the special effects there.
There's a great YouTube channel. You may have heard of them. They're called Corridor 35 or something.
Yep.
And they do special effects.
Yeah, so it was amazing. And I mean, look, you could see there was practical effects with that vine that I know at the end when they went to that place with the helium, where they got the helium, that old amusement park, like you could see some of the natural vines versus the special effects vines. And it really did work, like that crossover between the two, like the special effects versus the physical effects. You know what I mean? Like you could see the difference. And I don't mean like you could totally see what was artificial or not, but what they had done is they'd covered everything with fake leaves, so the actors walk through that, so it looks real.
Yeah,
but then maybe on the wall it was computer. You know what I mean? But it looked really real. They'd done a really lovely mix between the two.
Yeah, I think there was. It looked utterly convincing. I think probably helped having all that fog.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like. But the fog, I've seen a couple of horror films and stuff over time where they do things like fake fogs and stuff. But I think this also did it well because they kind of covered the whole city in fog. But then also the fact that then when she was up in her mountain top place, there was no fog. And she sort of like drove out of the fog and the fog was in the distance.
Yeah.
And then when you're in the thick of the city, because of the vines and the leaves and the darkness and the dullness, the fog kind of worked.
Yeah.
Whereas, as I said, like I have seen a couple of horror films where it doesn't quite work because they just kind of lay it on really thick, and it's almost like the characters can't see anything, and you're just kind of like, oh, that's really fake,
Well, it's like those supposedly nighttime shoots where it's clearly daytime. And they've just put like a bit of a blue filter on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bit dreadful.
Well, in fact, you can even shoot day through your camera and make it night. And they used to do that in the old westerns. So it's just to do with like how you open your f-stop and stuff. So it's like, it's not even a filter. Like it's just the way you shoot it. So it's like, but you can totally tell that it's daytime,
Yeah, the shading.
The shadows and the shade.
Yeah, so the YouTube is the Corridor crew. And they do all special effects things.
Yeah, right.
And they analyze. They have a series of like best and worst, where they'll show a scene from a movie.
Yep.
Where the the melding of special effects, computer graphics into practical or real is really well done. And they'll point out the spot exactly where they swapped the characters and stuff.
Yeah.
And then they'll show you one where it doesn't work, and they'll show why, this character, his foot slides a little bit and it doesn't work right. And
that's
the wind
cool.
doesn't. Our Western Australian fellow Grant Spatori did a special on there where he was talking about I Am Mother, which we covered a little while ago.
We did.
And he looks at that where a lot of the Mother special effects were a suit, practical, but there's some surprising spots where it actually was entirely CG, or at least partially CG. And for practical reasons, there was working with the toddler. There was no way they could get the toddler to hold the hand of this robot and walk next to it. So they just got Mum and then superimposed the robot over top. So Mum wore like a couple of dots and walked along, and the toddler was happy to walk. And then it looked like toddler was walking next to Mother.
You got to do what you got to do.
But yeah, so I checked out the Corridor Crew on YouTube. If you're interested in the way special effects get used, they've done a few things like make an R-rated version of Home Alone, which is very funny. And it's incredible what they were able to do, because they used just the footage like from the DVD release and then reworked it with their computers and re-rendered it.
Yeah.
And they actually could get away with changing it quite a lot. It makes you wonder how many films they've actually in post totally altered.
Yeah, and there is plenty that do, and we've talked about this, like Has, from The Beyond. Like he shares a lot of his special effects stuff that he does. He's working for a Disney TV show at the moment, but he shares a lot of that kind of like using projection versus green screens and things like this. He's a very good guy to have a look at on Twitter if you are interested as well, as a filmmaker that's doing stuff in the sci-fi realm and showing you some of those behind-the-scenes stuff that he does on his projects. Yeah. But I think that's the main thing to pick on for this film. I think, the rest of it, the acting was really good, special effects really good. But yeah, in terms of like camera and lighting and sound, we probably didn't have anything really stand out majorly, I don't think. And we've gone over the plot. I think personally the plot, we probably kind of, I don't know, like it would have been maybe a little bit more interesting to come in at a different point in the story, maybe. Like it felt a little bit slow at the start to me. Like we learnt a lot about her before Micah came into the story. And I think he could have probably come in a bit earlier in the piece. Yeah. Or they could have ramped it up, the drama a bit more earlier in terms of if he didn't come in, maybe the storm needed to hit a lot earlier. I don't know. There was a pretty big setup of Sam. Like I kind of got the gist of what was going on with her a lot quicker than I think they gave maybe the audience credit for. But yeah, I think special effects wise, it really nailed it. I was really impressed with the fog and the city and where it was and how it was shown. And I think it was clever that, you went up that mountain to her clean air and that was all clear. And yet, like, the city was covered in this fog thing, like
and you can see kind of very broken bits of the city poking out.
Poking out, so
it was so convincing. It made you feel like you wanted to see more action, more things happen in there. Yeah, because it looked so mysterious and interesting. They'd be hiding secrets and little revelations about what had happened and
that's right,
clues on what could happen.
And maybe that's what I also mean about the plot. Like I felt like I wanted to know a bit more about what happened. I wanted to know a bit more about that backstory, and even her father's science, like the pig and stuff. Maybe we could have learned a bit more about that.
Make it a bit more obvious. that and then something even was going on.
Yeah, and then even the space station, like we said, like 100 ships left Earth, and they went to this power station. But then that's it. We get this email correspondence with good old Muskie, but we don't know anything about it, and that's why I was thinking, because they kept us in the dark about that so much, I was kind of leaning towards maybe the twist will be that in fact there is no power station. It's a trick. Like it's a failed station in
She's
space.
communicating with someone locally.
Yeah. Or it's just a message or something, you know, like it is her father.
Yeah.
Pre-recorded messages or something, you know, like, and maybe it would turn out that it's a ghost ship out there in space that no one really survived, you know. But no, it wasn't that way. But maybe that was the thing. I think plot-wise, we could have had a bit more of that side of it be developed, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
But overall, like, yeah, it kept me interested, and it was a good, tight, you know, the fact that you only had a couple of characters for the whole film, and they really did solidly debate, you know, evolution and the idea of, like, humans not being alone. You know, I think that's what this film was all about.
And whether it was the end of the world or the beginning of a new world. The beginning
of a new world, and, you know, humans shouldn't be on their own. They need someone else, you know, like so if everyone left Earth, that would be, why would you stay? It's actually defeatist of the purpose of being a human.
Yeah.
You know, like we actually survive in numbers. We always have. We need to evolve with each other. We need to kind of get along with each other. We need someone else for us to survive, really, you know, and thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the film touched on that. But let us know what you thought about the IO, and also what we've talked about tonight through our different mediums. So we are on Twitter
at Gravity Undone or at SpaceBrainsPod.
Yep, and Space Brains Podcast is both on Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, please reach out, let us know. We will reply to you. And if you were involved at any point of making this film, that would be lovely to speak to you as well.
Yes, that would be awesome. Even if it's just Lucy.
Yes.
Because she was darling.
She was absolutely awesome. So any of you out there, we will hit you up on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and come back to us and let us know what you thought about what we've talked about, whether you agree with us, disagree. It's good to know. We've had some good responses, and also maybe a film that we should look at, or sci-fi that we should investigate. We don't mind. We're with See You yesterday. That was suggested by a colleague of mine. So yeah, let us know of a film and we can do that. And our next episode,
I was say Event Horizon was also a special request.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Event Horizon
early
was.
On,
Yep. So we've had a couple of recommendations and we've gone with it. So let us know if you want to be part of the Space Brain situation. And what's our next?
Next film is Snowpiercer. It's a fantastic film by Korean director. Why are you looking at me funny?
No reason. I thought we were doing a different film, but we can do Snowpiercer. I thought we were going to do the thing. But that's okay. We can do Snowpiercer.
We're doing Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer. We'll do the thing of the following one.
The thing will be the following one. And that'll be the new thing, and this is the only Snowpiercer.
Yes,
there has been talks of sequels and spin-off shows and things.
So I know Chris Evans is in it, and then it is a Korean director, isn't it? Which we should.
I'm just going to quickly tell you who it is. Snowpiercer. Screenplay by Bong Joon-ho and Kelly Masterson. It's based on Le Transpersonnage, which translates from French as Snowpiercer, by Jacques Loeb, Benjamin Legrand, Jean-Marc Rochette, and it stars Chris Evans.
Yeah, Chris Evans. Captain America.
Kang Ho, Tilda Swinton, Jamie Bell, Octavia Spencer.
Tilda Swinton, yes. That's who I was thinking of. Yeah,
Ed Harris.
And Ed Harris is, well, we won't spoil it until we get there, but yes. I have seen Snowpiercer before, but I look forward to
it's a good one.
It is a good one.
I'm wondering if this is going to become a classic. It's like a bit of a cult.
Yeah, or maybe that'll be part of our topic. Yeah, it'd be good if you're out there and hit us up to see what you think of Snowpiercer. So that's all for tonight, and we will see you next episode of Space Brains.
Bye.
Bye-bye.